And we're live. Morning, everybody. Craig here. So it is about 7:30 a.m. my time. It's a Sunday morning, Super Bowl Sunday. I assume everyone's going to watch the Super Bowl. Um, I get, uh, I wouldn't say I get less interested in the Super Bowl every year, but it doesn't. I'll watch it. This should be a good game this year. I have mixed emotions about whether I want the Chiefs. I'm not a Chiefs fan, but I'm always interested in sort of oh, dynasties is the right word, but just remarkable runs. And so it would be amazing if they did win three in a row. Um, I'm not a huge Eagles fan either, so I don't really. I'm actually here just to watch a good game, kind of like with the World Series. I'm more of a baseball fan than a football fan, and so I kind of enjoyed watching because last year was as the Dodgers and the Yankees. I'm a Minnesota Twins fan, so I hate the Yankees. So I guess I probably was a little biased against the Yankees, but I don't love the Dodgers either. But so yeah, I'm gonna watch the Super Bowl today. Um, I was supposed to be out of town for sort of a work event this week, starting Tuesday, and that got got canceled over the weekend, which was a little bit of a disappointment. I was kind of looking forward to that, but it also was nice because it was going to be a very busy and stressful week. And now I have a week of time back in my schedule that I can work on some things. I wanted to talk about cars today. Um, so I know some people really like cars, and I don't dislike cars, but I see cars almost entirely as um, a tool. I don't put a lot of value or weight in cars or even in the experience of cars beyond their functionality for me. Maybe if I ever get older and a little more financially free where I can have a vehicle more for fun, that'll change. But vehicles have always been very functional for me. Um, it's the way I grew up. My dad uh, was the same way, although my dad still talks a little bit about his 1969 Chevy Camaro that he had, that he was very proud of. He always loves to tell a story about the time he outran a cop with it. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Um, but then he had to sell the Camaro when my brother and I came along, and I always, I always kind of wanted if I could become independently wealthy, I was going to put a restored Camaro out front of his house. But he's getting up there in years, and the chances of me becoming rich overnight seem to be dwindling. So we'll see. What's your for those that see this in the comments, let me know what your favorite car is or was. Maybe it's the one you have now. Um, I've had a lot of vehicles over the years, some better than others. Um, the first one I remember, it was a car my parents had gotten. It was an old Ford Escort, and that car was an old beater. It ran good. Didn't have to put much money for gas in it. And we used to take that thing fishing, and we had a 10-foot flat bottom boat, and we would prop the hatch up and we'd slide the flat bottom boat in the back of that Ford Escort, drive down the road, strap it down, stick it way out the back. And then we'd go farm pond fishing. And I remember one time we went out, we took it out fishing way back on this farm road, and on the halfway back to town, the vehicle started running funny or sounding funny. And I was just a teenager, so I was just kind of stupid about these things. Pulled over, and here what had happened is when we had gone out to this pond. When I had turned around out in the grass, I had hit a rock or something, and I knocked the radiator hose off the bottom of the radiator, and of course drained all the coolant out of it, and the engine overheated, and it was never the same. I don't even know if it really ran after that. I think I got her pretty hot on the way home. That was my first beater car. Then my brother. So in college, I had two cars. Um, they were both hand me downs from my parents. One was a old what year was it? Like an '88 Oldsmobile Clay. I'm showing you my years here. It was a two door, which I don't know why they ever made two-door cars, but it was a two-door car, and that thing was just completely unstoppable in terms of it just ran. Back then, you could always get 40 miles to the gallon with it, and it just I'm not sure. I think we ended up selling it to another family or giving it to another family for their teenager. But I drove that thing back and forth to college. I lived 11 hours from home or from college, and so I drove that thing back and forth. And it was just a those kinds of cars are just great. And I don't know if they don't make them like that anymore. We have one like that here. We have a must be like a 2007 Honda Accord, but it's got some issues. It goes through a lot of oil, and I'm not entirely sure where it's going. Other than it's really important to check the oil on it. It's got a weird thing with the starter. It kind of clicks, and then it starts, and I have to figure out what that is. So that's kind of the equivalent. That's for the kid's car to go to school and stuff. And my boy now, my 18-year-old, who's a senior in high school, badly wants a truck, and not just any truck. He wants a Dodge Diesel, and so he's been. I'll talk about that a little bit. That was kind of the reason for this video. um, but so the after I had that white Calais in college, I ended up with a truck that my brother used to have. He got rid of it because he needed a four-wheel drive, but it was a '79 Ford Courier, which is kind of like the pre-Ranger. Man, I like that vehicle. Two-wheel drive, little four-cylinder engine, and he had he had gone up to like a big full-size Ford four-wheel drive, which turned out to be a total lemon. That's why when you got something that works, don't get rid of it too easily because you could end up with something that doesn't work as well. So when he got the bigger Ford, then I don't know if I bought or swung a deal with him. Back then, you could like trade stuff. Maybe I traded my interest in our boat. We bought a boat together one time, a good fishing boat. But regardless, I ended up with this yellow 1979 Ford Courier, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I don't know. I think she was a little embarrassed to ride around in it with me. But I tell you, that thing always started, and I could work on it myself. You could pretty much sit up in the engine compartment doing anything because it had that much space in it, even though it was a small vehicle. Just a very simple, no bells and whistles, inline four-cylinder, and then had the box in the back. So you could haul like a boat, small flat bottom boat, your hunting stuff, fishing stuff, tools. I did some carpentry work during college, and I could haul all that around. And that was a good vehicle. I have a story about that I'll tell you someday, but not this morning. So I had that pickup. Yeah, and I ended up. What ended up happening to it is I had then gotten a car. Again, this is sort of, although the car ended up being my favorite car ever, so I guess it wasn't so bad. But I decided I wanted a car that was something a little more comfortable than the pickup truck. I mean, big old steering wheel, no front, no power steering, and I don't got a radio in it. It didn't have air conditioning or anything like that, and so it was it didn't have a lot of the conveniences of life. I was out of college, or just yeah, I think it was my year after college at that time. I decided I wanted a car, so I ended up. I don't know if I gave or sold real cheap to a college professor of mine who was going through some difficult times. It needed a vehicle really bad. I said, "Well, here, this one's just." I was just going to park it. I said, "Might as well drive this." And he ended up getting into a crash with it, um, and so I never got to drive it again in it. But I ended up finding it years later, and I'll tell you that in another story. So then the vehicle I got, and probably the best vehicle I've ever had by far, I got during that year after college. So I was like, what, 22, 23. I was probably engaged or just about to be engaged at that time. And I bought a Subaru Legacy two-wheel drive. It's one of the last two-wheel drive vehicles that Subaru made. I bought it from a priest who took super good care of it. Always had it in for the regularly scheduled oil changes and brakes and all that. So it at that time, it would have been 10 years old, and it was a great vehicle. Good gas mileage, like just I think always ran. It was a 5 speed, and so I bought that from him, and then like I said, and then I got rid of the pickup. And that car, like literally, if I could still have that car, I'd still have that car. Even though it was a two-wheel drive, it was front-wheel drive. It just got around really good. And the one thing I remember about it, thing would turn on a dime. However the front end was on that thing, it would just turn really sharp. And it was a fun car to drive. Like I said, it was a 5 speed. And I had that all through graduate school. And then um yeah, it was such a good car. And then my wife had a Chevy Malibu that was her car in college. That so when we got married, those are the two cars we had. And then we used that until I think we used that we had those two vehicles all through grad school, all through my first job. And when we were expecting our third is when we had to get rid of one of the vehicles because we needed a minivan. And I tried selling that Malibu. And every time someone would stop to look at it, they said, "Well, what do you want for the Subaru?" I'm like, "Well, the Subaru's not for sale." Subaru was way older. I had gotten into a crash with it shortly after I got it, and it kind of mangled in the front uh, quarter panel on the driver's side and the hood and all that. And I just bent it out and drove it. I'll have a story about that sometime as well. But I just drove it like that. It was a great car. Kind of looked a little ugly on the front end, but everything mechanical was fine. And so that was my work car, and everybody always wanted to buy that. And then I ended up selling that. Stupid me, because no one wanted to give me what I wanted for the Malibu. And so I sold the Subaru. We got our first minivan, which was this Chevy. I don't remember what they called them back then. We've always had at least a minivan since then. I can't remember if that minivan had doors that open on both sides or just the one side. That was the big thing. When I grew up, minivans were just coming out, and they were great. They were great. They're better than you didn't really have SUVs then. But the door always it was only the one door that opened. It was kind of a pain in the butt to crawl into the other side and put kids in their car seats. Well, now everything opens up on both sides, which is great. But that's when we got our first minivan, and that was actually a really good van. That Chevy, we drove that thing a lot, and put a lot of kids through that. And I think I ended up giving it to my dad when we were done because he just needed a beater vehicle. I said it still runs, but we had gotten. I think that's when we got our first. Yeah, I think that's when we got our big van. We have a 15 passenger van. Got a great deal on that. Chevy Express. I love that. It's still here. It's it's butt ugly now. It's in tough shape, but thing still runs. Um, I don't know how far I would drift away from home with it, but here I'm gonna go replenish my coffee. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Replenished my coffee. If you can't tell, my voice is screwed up right now. The pestilence is going through the household, although I think we're on the tail end of that. We took one of my daughters in who was just not getting better, and she has influenza A. Not sure if that's what, I don't think that's what I've got. Um, I mentioned early on that I had a work conference this coming week that um, got canceled yesterday. And it's probably a good thing because I have a lot of speaking I was supposed to do at that. And my voice is not great right now. I'm close to letting you guys know what I actually do for a living. Some of you do know. I'm not quite in a position where I can tell you that, but it's coming. So those of you do know, please keep it to yourself until I have things kind of in order. So anyway, back to vehicles. So I was talking about our first big van, which was a big Chevy Express 15 passenger, 1 ton sick man at for I think I told you at the beginning, I don't really care about cars. I actually do. I mean, I like cars that are very useful and dependable and all that. And so that Chevy Express has been a great vehicle. We got it at about 150,000 miles, and now it's got 250,000 miles and still going. So so that was our first big van, and then I think the next vehicle. So then I've kind of circulated through the work cars myself. I had what I would say were two pretty shitty cars in a row. Um, let's see who's showing up in the chat here. Oops. Morning picking. Austin Haley 3000. What is that? I don't even know what that is. Is that a, it sounds like a, I don't know, one of those fancy cars, but that maybe I'm just a Midwest hick. I don't know. You'll have to tell me more what that's about. Um, so when so the two vehicles I had that were just shit shows were I thought, okay, I had a great luck with that first Subaru. Let's get another Subaru. So I bought a Subaru Impreza. We were I live about 30 miles from my main office, and and okay, that, yeah, that makes sense. Sounds like a European sports car. So um have you ever seen one or had one or been around one? If you, I'll have to look that up and see what that's like. Um, so I had a so I thought, okay, I'll get another Subaru. So I got it, and I lived a ways away from work, and I wanted something maybe with all-wheel drive. So I got the Subaru Impreza, and that thing was just a problem from the beginning. Um, Gosh, everything. I mean, those things go through tires, they go through brakes. I think the front axles I had to change. Eventually the head gasket went and it started overheating. and I hit a couple deer with it. It wasn't like it was not like it never left me stranded anywhere, but it was constantly in the shop and not just cheap stuff, like expensive crap. So that's so I had my best car was a Subaru and my worst car has been a Subaru. So I don't know if I'll ever have another Subaru again. So when I got rid of that Subaru, um, is when what was it? I don't remember what I was driving at that time. Maybe it was just the Subaru. And then I had gotten my wife. Oh yeah, this is how it went. Um, I was trying to save the life of our big van and something a little easier to get around with. So we had been kind of watching for a while. My wife had always missed her minivan, and so then I picked up a Toyota Sienna, um, which is probably one of my favorite vehicles. I have two of them now. Toyota Siennas. I really, really like the Siennas. I'm a big fan of Toyotas, except for headlights. I'll talk about headlights here in a moment. Um, Turns out maybe that's not a Toyota problem, but I have the same problem with both Toyotas. Um, so when I was a little kid, Pop would be in his garage fixing up this really banged up one, making homemade parts for it. Tape player, and it told me to ask it questions. That's funny. Kit, we call it kit. um, I'm trying to remember if I don't remember having a vehicle. My grandpa, story I remember, my grandpa had an old um, cedar strip canoe that was in his garage, and he would I swore he worked on that forever, and we pretty much all resigned ourselves to the fact that he would die before he got that thing finished, and so we would sit around that, and he would be working on it, but he did get it fixed, and then he went out, and I think it was so tippy they didn't wanna use it anymore. So he spent all this time restoring this old cedar strip canoe, and then when he went out to use it, he didn't feel like it was safe, so, that's the closest I can get to your grandpa's car. So, I get my wife this Toyota Sienna, which we still have. It's a great minivan. Like, if I had to buy an I almost bought a 3rd one. I mean, that's how much I like them. 'Em. They're just great vans. Other than the power doors are really annoying. Um, so got her a minivan, and then shortly after that is when my Subaru, um, kicked the crapper, and so I had to buy 2 cars in the period of 3 or 4 months, which was not great. So this time I was like, well, I'm gonna buy a car that's gonna last me a long time. And I was doing a lot of traveling for work at that time. And so I kind of wanted a Volkswagen. So I got a used, everything I buy is used. I got a used Volkswagen Jetta and with a diesel. I thought, well, I'm gonna buy this thing. I want the diesels just last a long time. It was a 6-speed. That was a mistake, um, because no one else could drive it, but that was a fun car to drive. So it was a diesel Jetta with a 6-speed manual transmission. I put a lot of miles on that thing, and it was a good car, but it wasn't super practical. Sat kinda low. Like I said, my wife never really drove it. I started teaching my kids how to drive it, and they had such a hard time with it. Eventually, we did knock the clutch out of it, which is why I got rid of it because it was like literally like a $4,000 fix. My brother-in-law is a mechanic, and he took it off my hands. He's like, "I'll fix it." I think he still has it. So that was as close into the exotic cars as I got. I had a Volkswagen. And so I had that Volkswagen Jetta diesel. You talk about gas mileage. I mean, it would regularly get into the 50 miles per gallon. Um, it just sounded nice. I love the sound of that car. I like a diesel engine. Hey, Jonah. Good to see you. Tell us your favorite car. I'm going through my history of cars. So tell us your favorite car or what you'd like to have, whatever. You saw, you seem like you're probably a pickup guy, but you remind me of my teenage son, so I'm guessing you're a pickup guy. But tell me your favorite vehicle. Um, so so I had that Jetta, and then I sold it to my brother-in-law. Um, 39 Buick. How old are you? Good grief. That's like that's like Model T territory. Yeah, have fun hauling all those kids around in that thing. Oh, yeah. I guess that's I have a school bus out here, sort of like that. I got to get it fixed. It runs. It needs to be converted so we can do some traveling and stuff in it. Um, yeah, I used to have. Trying to think if I've never had a. I've had an old tractor. I had an old Ford tractor that I was going to restore and um, never got around to it. Hondas. Yeah, I, yeah, I- I've had a lot of vehicles. Like I said, I've had Fords, Chevys, Subarus, Volkswagens, Toyotas. I have a Honda now. What else? I mean, I think that's everything we've had. Um, I like the Toyotas. We have a Honda now. I do think Toyotas and Hondas are about as good as you can get. Um, 1990 Lincoln Mark 7. That's a big beast, isn't it? Uh, Lincoln Mark 7. That's gonna be a big. Yeah, you missed this part of it, but my best car I ever had was a Subaru, and the worst car I ever had was a Subaru. Two different vehicles. So, I will. The worst one was more recent and left a bigger impression on my pocketbook. So for that reason, I don't think I'll ever get another Subaru. I came real close to getting a Subaru um, Baja. I wanted one of those in the worst way, and just couldn't find one for the right price. Um, are you saying you had a let's see, oh, let's see, 5-liter Mustang engine? Is that for your Mach 7 your Mark 7? My dad one time had a old pickup, it was just a 1980s pickup, and we got a motor out of a Thunderbird, and then it turned out the motor was junk. Um, Oil leak here. Um, yeah, the Honda we have, the Honda Accord goes through oil. It doesn't burn it, and I don't see it leaking anywhere, but it goes through, like, a little bit of an alarming amount of oil. Um, I don't really have a shop or place where I could put it up and kinda look at it. I just tell the boys keep adding oil to it. So you don't really have to do an oil change with it because it's always got fresh oil in it. Um, so yeah, so after I had the Volkswagen, I I think it took me a little while so anyway, I decided to get another minivan. So my wife has a 2013 Toyota Sienna minivan, which I love. She loves. And then I bought a 2011 Toyota Sienna, which I love. I mean, there's nothing manly about it, but I tell you, that thing is super functional. It's my truck now. I can fold all the seats down. I can hold 4x8 sheets of plywood and drywall in it. Um, so I like I really like the functionality of that as opposed to a SUV. I'm just not an SUV guy. They just can't. They're just not. I don't know. I really like the sliding doors. I like the hatch on the back, and so I might, because I'm getting old enough, I might always just be a minivan guy. Maybe the one vehicle my wife and I have toyed with, if our kids ever get a get old enough, is to maybe get a Jeep. Jeep Wrangler or something and drive around and pull the top off and stuff. But yeah, I don't know if this is still the true if this is still true, but I believe the culture at Toyota is different. The Japanese, I think, took personal pride in making good vehicles. Um, like I said, I don't know if that's still the case there, but I think for a long time it was. Um, my daughter actually had a Toyota Prius. My oldest daughter, who's in college, I had gotten her a Toyota Prius. Um, I'm sure Jonah has thoughts about that, but got a Toyota Prius for her to go to college, and then she got T-boned, um, 6 months later. Good thing I had gap coverage on that thing because that thing so anyway, so they, and then and that's when I got the Honda. The Honda was about half third the price of that Toyota, uh, Prius. Now it was a lot older and more miles, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Japanese are gonna run out of people over there, so I don't know what they're I mean, we're making more of them. Jonah and I are replenishing the supply over here, but I doubt that the quality of what we're producing is quite what the Japanese do. Um, but I do like I am a if I was forced to pick a vehicle to roll the dice on, other than something very superior, I think it would be another Toyota. Um, yeah, when we went, my wife and I went out to Arizona. Um, we had a rental car, and we were going up to like the Grand Canyon. We had our bags and stuff. So I said, I'm not going to ride in a car. I'm going to get a little bigger vehicle. So we had the option between a Dodge Durango and a Toyota Land Cruiser, and wasn't a hard decision. So we went with the Toyota Land Cruiser, and that was a fun vehicle. And it was kind of nice because a lot of the knobs and everything are kind of where we're used to having them. So we cruised around Arizona in a Toyota Land Cruiser, and I she was like, I could get used to driving this vehicle. So yeah, so right now the fleet is our old 15 passenger Chevy, um, which mostly just sits there now, just because I don't really need it. And the last time I had it in for service work, it the main issue it has now is it leaks power steering fluid kind of bad, and it has yeah. So you have an older one. You have a Chevy '99 Chevy Express. Um, I might have a seat for you. Ours is a 2000. Ours is a little newer. Ours is like a 2003, I think. I don't think they changed that much. Is yours the 12 passenger, the 15 passenger? So we have the 15 passenger, and I do. I mean, we looked at all the big vans, the Fords, the Dodges at that time. They've made some changes since then. We've got ours probably oh 12, 13 years ago. But at the time, the Chevy was by far, I thought, the best vehicle. We got a hell of a deal on it. I take those, man. The only thing, those seats are the heaviest damn thing ever. I take it in and out. Um, Man, my back hurts just thinking about it. But that thing it's just built like crazy. Um, 9 passenger with cargo room. So you have, I don't know how that works. So is the rear seat out on it then? Is that what it is? So we have yeah, so our 15 passenger, we don't really ever go anywhere where we need all 15 seats. I mean, we've never needed all 15 seats, but it helps to keep the kids from fighting a little bit. Okay, so we I took out the rear seat a while ago, and so you have a ton of cargo space in the back, plus room for 11 people. When we went to Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, when we went to when we went to California earlier this year with all the kids, I rented a Ford Transit. I see those all over. That seems to be the new vehicle that all the big trad families drive is those Ford Transits. It wasn't a bad vehicle. It's not like the Chevy Express though. Um, I mean, more comfortable. The seats are more comfortable, but that had a smaller motor with a like a turbo and like a 12-speed transmission. That seems to me like like I don't know that I don't know how much you could pull with that. I mean, with that 1-ton Chevy, it's got a 6-liter engine, 1 ton. I mean, I pulled some heavy, heavy shit with that thing. And the transmission, I think, is just heavier. But maybe I'm just an old boomer. I don't know. But I'm glad I'm not in the market to buying another big vehicle now. Um, so good luck to you, Jonah. Yeah, I've hauled some heavy shit with my minivans too, but you have to be careful about them. I I honestly don't know what I mean, I've been looking at possibly getting a full-size pickup truck for a while now, but they're so expensive for what you get. I mean, for me, I would if you kinda had the could put the money together, I would have a nice minivan that you can haul the kids around for the most part, and then get a, like I said, get an older 3/4 ton or 1 ton big passenger van. You could pull the seats in and out of it. You could pull a trailer, that kind of stuff. I think that is more practical than a truck for most of us big Catholic families. But those are beginning. I mean, I think Chevy still makes the big passenger van. So, but last time I looked at possibly replacing the one we have, I mean, I was like, holy cow, the money it costs to get one with like 175,000 miles was just crazy. So right now I have the old van, I have the 2 Toyota minivans and the Honda Accord, and oh, I have an old I have an old Dodge Dakota pickup that it's funny. It looks actually pretty nice. The body is in surprisingly good shape, and up until the last time the motor ran really good, but the frame is so rotted out. It is so rusted out. It kind of sits kind of cannywampus, and it was my teenage boy, the one that wants a bigger truck really bad. He was driving that around. They call it booby. That name came with it. I don't know. It's German for little something. I don't know. Yeah, this one might be. This might be the same. This might be the same thing. It's a two-wheel drive, regular cab. I think it's a four-cylinder. I think it's a four-cylinder though, but I'm not. I believe so. I can't remember for sure. It could be a V6. And I went. So I went to get tires on it, and I set up an appointment. Told my son to go to Walmart, uh, to the tire center and get tires on it. And he calls me. He said, "Dad, they won't put tires on." I said, "What do you mean?" Well, they put up on the lift, and they couldn't find a safe spot to like lift the lift the truck so they could change the tires. They said, "We're not touching this truck." So, I mean, if this truck got like hit from behind, it would like fold up like a pop can. I'm pretty certain of that. So it's not a very safe vehicle, but it's a little pickup. Um, so we were driving it around, and I would take it like to the dump on Saturdays and stuff, and you could throw a deer in the back of it if you needed to. But then I went out to drive it last fall, and it'd been sitting a while, so I threw the charger or my jumper and my jump pack on it. Um, and all of a sudden the thing started smoking really bad. Yeah, it's definitely not safe to be driving. Like it's probably parental malpractice to let my kid drive it. It's probably stupid for me to drive it too, but went out to try and start it, and this thing started smoking. I'm not sure why. I had the jumper pack on it. I had him on right, and then I went to start it, and then like somewhere down around the alternator, something started smoking to the point where I was a little afraid the truck was going to start on fire. And it's parked right next to my wagon full of firewood, and I was like, I got to get this thing out of here. If it starts to burn, I don't want it to burn my firewood. Well, it stopped, so it's been sitting there ever since. Um, yeah, probably. We have we live in the country. I don't have a garage, so so we do have mice move in. I don't know. I mean, this truck is, like I said, it's real sketchy underneath, and I suspect it's. I mean, it has to be some. I mean, it could be. It has to be either sort of with the starter or the alternator, because it did it when I tried to like turn it on. Um, so it's just sitting there. So I'll try. Fortunately or unfortunately, my neighbor right up the road has an unofficial junkyard. He pulls all these vehicles in, so it's kind of an eyesore, but it's nice because I can just drag it up there and he'll give me $100 for the scrap, which is probably more than the metal that's actually left on it. So yeah, so now my son wants a truck in the worst way. And and he's never really had a long-term job, and he's not a saver. And he wants a truck worse way because all his buddies at school drive pickups. Like, there's no reason he needs it. He's got the Honda, but it's just a boy thing. I don't know, Jonah. I don't know if you were like that. Uh, I don't know. I became practical, I think, at an earlier age than my son, who just he's like crunching the numbers, and with the money he works at a farm nearby milking cows, and with the money he makes there, he could pay for the car payment and the insurance. And I'm like, well, and gas. I'm like, well, okay, what about when you need tires? What about when something breaks? Like, the trucks that he's looking at are someone else's project that they got tired of putting money into. I mean, that's just a problem. So, um, so anyway, so he wanted me to co-sign on a loan. I'm like, I'm not co-signing on a loan for you for something you don't need. I said, you're going to graduate in May. I said, you can work. He's not going to go to college. Um, you'll be able to make enough money in your first summer if you just save it to like buy a much better vehicle. But nope, he's got to have it now. So he's just bloody convinced he's going to buy a vehicle, and I'm struggling with how supportive or unsupportive to be. I think he's making a mistake, but he's 18, but he still lives in my house. Doesn't pay rent. Doesn't really do much of anything around here. He does help um, shuttle kids to and fro, but he's so anyway, I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. We'll see. Yeah. I don't know if you know this, Jonah, but I actually looked very hard. I was very interested in kind of the the Catholic land movement, and like to the point, like, the property we have now, there's another I have another property on the back of it that could have another house. I had all kinds of ideas about buying a parcel of land and then putting like a central, um, kind of like a building where with like kind of a rec area. You could have some animals. Maybe you could have a communal meal once in a while if you wanted to. It's not like a commune, but if you wanted to, and then people would have their houses around it. I d- I had all that sketched out. It's really hard in most states unless you go live out in Utah where they don't give a damn what you do. It's really hard to do that. And to be honest with you, people are just not designed for community. So you need a certain level of management of this so that people like me don't go out and do crazy shit, but you don't want to micromanage it so that, so it's just I used to have that dream, man, Jonah, I had that dream, and now the more I see of people, the less confident I am that that's even workable. The closest thing to that is the Amish community around here, and they do it. I mean, they do some pretty hilariously backwards things to make that work, and they cut. You probably like being an Amish, Jonah. You could tell your wife what to do and um, have all kinds of babies and not have to drive cars. I was close to that at one point in time, other than the telling my wife what to do all the time, and but not having cars and stuff. That part is kind of attractive, but um, they give up a lot of conveniences in life. I mean, I'm sitting in a nice warm house drinking my coffee, and they're out making a trip to the outhouse in the middle of the night. So you tell me. Um, so that's my car. That's my car rant. Knock on wood, I'm kind of okay for vehicles right now. There's no great need. I think the vehicles I have, especially the minivans, are going to be fine for a while. A little nervous about the kids' car. um, I'm just waiting for them or me to forget to put add oil and lock the engine up or something like that. But we'll see. Um, I don't like buying vehicles. I like having a vehicle that I know is reliable. I don't care what it looks like, what it sounds like. If it's reliable and does what I want, to me, that's a good vehicle, and I don't care what brand is on it or anything like that. So, yeah, that's kind of my. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's why we're all together. Maybe we're supposed to build this community. Um, I'll tell you right now, I'm not moving out to where you guys are at. So if you want to come westward, boys, I have the land set up here. I mean, I could. We'd have to break some laws to put multiple people out here, but um, I have 20 acres. Um, there is some. There's a couple of adjacent lots. When I say lots, they're like 4 or 5 acre pieces. It's kind of one I did because they're all kind of like they all wrap around each other and they're connect in the middle. Although it's in the woods, so it's not super accessible. You could make some roads in there, but it's kind of designed for it. And actually, I'm not sure it's necessary that you live like within walking distance of each other, or but it'd be handy. But if you're just close enough, so what I came to conclude, yeah, and so clears up. Your snow or we don't have any snow here. Well, we got like 2 inches yesterday, which is literally the first snow we've had since before Christmas. I think I pushed snow once this year with the tractor. We had like 4 inches. Otherwise, the tractor's all been set up. It's all greased up, fueled up, chains are on it, everything's good to go and just sitting there, which is fine with me. But the kids would like to have some snow. Um, so it's funny you say that. So when I built this house, so this is a log house. I looked at all the different things. Um, I looked at all that. Uh, Earth bag. We have too many building codes here where I'm at, but I looked at my wife and I had looked a lot at doing a straw bale house, which I think a straw bale house, if you live way out west, where you don't have to have big, deep frost footings, like around here, you have to have 4 foot frost footings. The problem with a straw bale house around here is because of uh, you would just you'd have a very expensive foundation, I think, to have that much concrete down for you'd have to put a concrete floor under it. I think, but we looked at that. I looked at compressed earth blocks, Um, there's a guy not far from here, um, who has a cordwood house. I looked at cordwood houses. Cordwood houses are really good if you have lots of time, and wanna do that. So cordwood is basically like pieces of firewood, basically, and you put a row and you mortar them and you kinda build it up, and then you leave a space in between them. It would be the same thing with, like, compressed earth blocks, um, and then you put insulation in between it, and he has a great house. No, well, rammed earth, I think if I understand what rammed earth is, I think they do that out west where they take I don't know if they, like, build forms up and they put dirt and they, like, kind of build it it looks like one big unit, whereas compressed earth blocks, as it sounds, you kinda put moist soil and you have to have the right consistency of clay and other stuff, and it basically uses a hydraulic press and it smashes it into what's kind of like a brick, an oversized brick, but it's made out of dirt. And there's an outfit near here that does that. I looked at that a little bit, and then so it's bricks, and then you lay them up. And I don't know if you mortar them together, but you basically lay two courses together with a gap in between them, and then you put insulation. If you're a real environmentalist, you use like I think that's some kind. What do they call it? It's almost like a insect byproduct, or you could put wool or I was gonna just spray foam in there. I was like, but and then you'd have to like stucco over the outside and do stuff like that. Um, Again, even more so than straw bale construction, that would require because it's so heavy would require a pretty substantial foundation under it. Um, and that's the thing. The concrete is the very expensive part of building, in my experience. And so when we looked at building, we decided not to go with straw bale. We decided not to go with compressed earth, um, stuff like that. I think a lot of those things, like the compressed earth blocks, rammed earth, straw bale, cob. I think, to be honest with you, I think are kind of a western arid thing. Maybe down south, but they don't work very good in the Midwest, and I don't think they'd work very well in the Northeast. You need a dry, arid uh, thing. We get too much moisture here, too much humidity, and we get driving rain. So you can't keep the walls dry, which is the main mistake I made with building a log house is you do get some driving rains and water, especially in the spring when the logs have kind of shrunk down over winter. You get water comes in the walls in the winter. It's a nightmare. I don't think I would never build another log house unless it had a total wraparound roof on it. So that is, I love our log house except for that. It looks nice. It's cozy. You can hang a picture anywhere you want. Um, well, so yeah, no, straw bale for insulation. Well, it depends. I don't know what they mean by straw bale for insulation. I mean, straw bale houses were a fad for a while. I think people have kind of moved past that a little bit. Um, I don't know how else you would use straw, to be honest with you. But straw bale, a bale is going to be like, let's say, how wide are they? 30 inches wide, something like that. 3 feet wide, and then they're like 4 feet long, 3.5 feet long. Um, it's a like it takes up a big area, and so you stack up these straw bales, and then you would put wire mesh, like a chicken wire, and then you stucco the outside, or maybe like a kind of like a clay if you're a real dry climate, and then you put like a clay I don't know, stucco is the right word, but you kind of plaster on the inside, and it's very good well insulation. It just you lose. I mean, you have to have a um. You just lose a lot of surface. You lose a lot of area because the walls are so thick. I think is what I'm trying to say here. And you can't really do straw bale like you pretty much unless you live in a very area where no one cares about building codes. You can't. You have to do it with like a timber frame construction. You have to have some structure to hold up the roof. I know people have tried to just put up straw bales and then lay the roof on top of it, but that's not a good idea. So I don't know how else you would use. I mean, if you use compressed earth, I mean, if you used earth bags, could you stuff a certain amount of straw in there with it? Yeah, but I think it would. Boy, I think it'd be really hard. It would be hard to make it structurally supportive. If you have like timber frame, like a post and beam structure, and then you used that stuff in between, that's one thing. Because then that's more of just a filler in the insulation. But if you want to make it structural, that's where it becomes much more difficult, I think, to add the insulation. Otherwise, the insulation, like I said, what you're doing is let's say you're putting two courses of a cordwood, or you're putting two courses of like compressed earth blocks or something like that, earth bags, and then you're leaving a gap in between that you're infilling with insulation, and that might be where you run your electrical wire and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know if I don't know that the cost of straw bales is so much the thing. It's more I think it's just because concrete is so expensive and roofing is so expensive. So you're putting underneath and you're covering a lot of area that you're never going to use. And so I personally think, and like I said, straw bales are not structural. You have to have an external structure to hold up the roof and stuff. So I just think that they don't. I think they're not economical because of the concrete and the post and beam, or whatever else you have to make that work. Um, so if I had to, things go in fads. I mean, a few years ago when I was considering if I ever built another house, I was giving a consideration to building a house out of those ICFs, insulated concrete forms, which is it's like a Lego, hollow Lego with styrofoam on each side, and then you pour cement in it. A lot of places do that for like basements and stuff like that, but just build the whole house that way. It'd be it'd be almost missile proof and super insulated, quiet. The concrete's expensive, and you can't really pour that yourself. You'd have to have a crew come out. You'd have to have a pumper truck and all that. And so every building, I mean, every building thing has its own pros and cons. Nothing's cheap anymore. I mean, if you wanted to do an earth bag construction or something like that, maybe because you could literally just take bags of dirt and fill it and smash it. But you'd have to do like a post and beam construction that is is your structure, holds up your roof, and then put those in between. We had looked at doing a yurt. I don't know if any of you guys have seen yurts at all. I mean, we looked at all of it. We looked at yurts. My my thought when we first moved out here, and I still think this might be the right way to do it because I'm a guy that hates building codes, is I wanted to put up a big pole building, a big shop, and then around where we're at, the electrical codes weren't so bad, but the water codes were really tough, and you had to have, the sewer and everything's very expensive around here. Which is why we didn't put a sewer when we didn't have running water when we originally put our place when we built our house. But I thought about putting up a big shop and then having a camper that you would pull into it and live in the camper, but then you'd have all this other space where the kids can run around and you could stretch out and have a wood heater and all that kind of stuff. Just we didn't do that. It's got its own practical problems, and I probably still would have gotten in trouble with the authorities for that. I don't know. We didn't go that route, so we ended up building a 16 by 40 log house, with a full loft, and then we later dug a basement, put a basement under it. That was probably probably should have put a basement in it first, but is what it is. Yeah, I still think for a lot of people, especially if you don't have a bunch of kids, I I really think this is the way to go because you can, as long as it's not your dwelling, um, you could build a large shop. You could do a lot of it yourself. You don't necessarily, I mean, you avoid a lot of the building codes that you have to deal with for dwellings. And then you but you have a camper, a nice camper. You can have the flushing stuff if you want. I would go with more like a composting toilet, but you can kind of have the comforts of life. And then if you want to travel, shoot, or you build that. Maybe you live in that, and then you build your house, and then you sell the camper or you keep the camper. But I just think, to me, I think that is still the way. If I had to do it all over again, that's the way I would do it. Is to build a big shop with a port or something under it for a camper. Um, Dollar for dollar, I think you get the most space, the quickest with the least, and your property taxes. I mean, we have high property taxes around here, and so anything that constitutes a dwelling just is taxed to the hilt. Anything that's like a shop or a detached building, not so much. Um, so then, if you did build a house, build a small, modest house, and then when the when the kids are young or when the kids come over and you need a big area, just go out to the shop, go out to the pole building, insulate it, heat it, and you can have a basketball hoop and everything in there if you want. I mean, that's my theory. Building huge houses, especially for people that when your kids are out of the house, but you want to have a place for everyone to stay when they come home for the holidays, to me seems like a really stupid idea because 99% of the year, most of the house isn't getting used. You're paying taxes on that, upkeep, depreciation. Build a small house, have a huge shop, rec area that's not considered residential, not considered a dwelling. That is the one thing that I think still remains true, and that's the way I would do it again. I sort of did that, except I didn't put up the big shop. I still don't have a good shop, but we built a small house. This house that we have now, we're stuffed in here as a big family, but it'll be perfect for my wife and I when we're down to fewer kids and stuff. And then if I get a big shop up, then we'll have a rec area for the family when they come home. Otherwise, literally, just rent some hotel rooms. I mean, that's my theory in life, but I don't know. I don't have it all figured out either. So yeah, so we got talking, started out in cars, and now we started talking about the other thing I really am passionate about is building and stuff like that. So fun that we were able to talk about that a little bit. Um, yeah. Anything else? So let's see. It's 8:30 here. I'm gonna go make my breakfast. Help get the kids ready. I went to mass last night. Um, so my wife will go this morning with a couple of the kids. So I'm gonna go help get kids ready. So it was a fun chat, you guys. Good talking to you guys. Obviously, if people come in after the fact and listen to this and have thoughts or questions about cars, trucks, houses, campers, whatever, cob villages, whatever, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm sure you haven't heard the end of it. So let me know if there. I'm probably either going to do this live stream most either Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings. Yesterday I live streamed to another channel I have, but let me know if Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings work better for you guys. Otherwise, yeah, this is kind of the stuff that I want to talk about on here. I got some pretty cool guests lined up. One's an author, actually, two are authors. I want to talk more about, fitness, financials, things like that, ways that people could improve their lives on this channel. So I hope you guys will stick around for that. So, all right, I'm gonna let you guys go. Hope you guys have a great Sunday. Hope you enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll catch you guys next week.